Welcome to Bamboo Podcast number 7. Hi everyone, and welcome back to Bamboo Podcast number 7. My name is Sahar Valai, your host from the YouTube channel Bamboo Languages. If this is the first time you are listening to our podcasts, you can find our first podcast, the introductory podcast, in the playlist to learn more about how to listen to and get the most out of our podcasts. Today's podcast is called Getting Home Late from School. You'll hear Sophie talking to her mom. Let's get started. Where have you been? Do you know what time it is?
I'm sorry, Mom. I lost track of time.
Lost track of time? We've been worried sick about you. You were supposed to come straight home after school.
I know, but Janet was showing me something in her locker when a fight broke out in the hallway. The vice principal, Mr. Lopez, finally came out and broke it up.
That still doesn't explain why you're late, and I don't want any excuses.
Well, one of the guys in the fight was Dan, Janet's brother. Mr. Lopez called their parents and I waited with her until they got there.
I never liked Dan. He's trouble. I don't want you hanging around with him.
I don't. I'm friends with Janet, not her brother. I didn't do anything wrong.
Oh, really? You missed curfew last week, and now you're late again. Just wait until your dad hears about this. You're grounded for a week.
Oh, Mom, that's not fair. None of my friends' parents are as strict as you are.
That's enough. I won't have you talking back to me. This podcast is about a mother and a daughter having a conversation, and it begins by the mother asking her daughter, Sophie, "Where have you been?" And you know from the way she says that she's angry, she's mad. Where have you been? Where were you? Do you know what time it is? Of course, she's asking her if she knows what time it is because she's late. And that's a common way of saying to someone they're very late. Do you know what time it is? Or if someone arrives very late and you were going to yell at them, like a father would perhaps yell at or speak very strongly to his daughter. To yell usually means to shout or to talk very loudly. So, to yell at someone is when you are angry with them and you talk very loudly. Sophie says, "I'm sorry, Mom. I lost track of time." The expression to lose track of time means that you didn't realize what time it was. You didn't realize that you were late. You were usually so busy doing something else, listening to Bamboo Podcast, or reading a good book that you lost track of time. You didn't pay attention to what time it was. And Mom says, lost track of time? As a question, meaning she doesn't really believe her, or she isn't very happy with her answer. She says, we've been worried sick about you. The expression to be worried sick means that you are extremely worried. You're very worried. You don't know what happened to the other person. You think something bad might have happened to them. And so, we use the expression to be worried sick, worried so much that you almost feel sick. Mom says, you were supposed to come straight home after school. You were supposed to means that it was what you were told to do. That is, what you had to do, or what you should have done. You were supposed to. We use that expression a lot. Supposed to, like, I'm supposed to go to school today, means that they are expecting me at school. I have an obligation to go to school. Mom says that Sophie was supposed to come straight home after school. The use of the word straight here means immediately, without stopping somewhere else. So, if you tell someone, I'm going straight to the hospital, that means I'm not going to stop at the store or at the post office and then go to the hospital. I'm going to go directly to the hospital. So here it can also mean simply directly home. Sophie says, I know, but Janet. We can guess one of her friends, Janet, she says, was showing me something in her locker. She wanted me to see something in her locker. A locker is a small box, usually a metal box, that you can lock. That's why we call that a locker. And it's where you keep things. In most American high schools, there are lockers in the halls or hallways, the space between the rooms where the students walk. There are lockers, and each student usually gets their own locker. They may have to share their locker. It's a space where they can put their coats in the morning, they can put extra books they don't need, they can put their lunch, if they bring their lunch, in their locker. You'll also find lockers at a gym, where you can put your clothes while you are exercising. And there are lockers in many airports where you can leave something and take the key. Well, Sophie says that her friend Janet was showing something in her locker, a locker that belonged to her, when a fight broke out in the hallway. When we say a fight broke out, we mean that it began, it is started. We often use that verb to break out when we're talking about something like a fight, something that starts suddenly. The vice principal, Sophie continues, Mr. Lopez, finally came out and broke it up. The vice principal is the person in the school who works for the principal. The principal is the leader of the school. We use that word, principal, for high schools, for junior high schools, for grad schools, or elementary schools. We don't use it for colleges. We don't say the head of the college is the principal. We only use that for high school or younger. Well, the principal is the boss of the school, and he or she has usually one and sometimes 3 or 4 people who are vice principals. And they do some of the work that the principal doesn't have time to do. One of the things that a vice principal does is take care of discipline problems. Discipline is the same as behaving or behavior in this case. When we talk about discipline problems, we're talking about kids who are doing things wrong, and the vice principal has to punish them or tell them that they are doing something wrong and give them some punishment, some price they have to pay. Not a price in the sense of money, but often they have to stay in school after the school day ends. The vice principal is often called the assistant principal or just AP, and that is the same person. Mr. Lopez, the vice principal, came out and broke the fight up. To break a fight up means to stop a fight, to stand in between the two people who are fighting and separate them. The police can also break up a fight or break up an argument. Well, Mom says that Sophie's story doesn't explain why she was late, doesn't say or give the reason why she was late. Mom says that I don't want any excuses. An excuse is a reason why you did something, usually a reason why you did something wrong or something incorrectly. And it can just mean the reason, but often it means a bad reason. Someone says, "Don't give me any excuses," means don't give me any bad reasons or false reasons why you did something wrong. When Mom says, "I never liked Dan, he's trouble," meaning he causes problems, he causes trouble. She tells Sophie that she doesn't want her hanging around with him. To hang around with someone means to spend time with them as a friend. Sophie says that she doesn't hang around with Dan. She hangs around with Janet, Dan's sister, and that she didn't do anything wrong. Now, we can guess that Sophie is a teenager, and most teenagers think that they never do anything wrong. So, Mom says, Oh, really? She doesn't believe Sophie. She tells her that she missed curfew last week. Curfew is the time, in this case, that children or teenagers have to come home. So, if your curfew is 10 o'clock, that means that you have to come back home from wherever you are by 10 o'clock at night. And many parents give their teenage children a curfew, so they don't want them coming home too late. The idea, of course, is that they will stay out of trouble. Mom says, just wait until your father hears about this. Just wait until. This is a very common expression that a parent may say. Just wait until your father hears about this means that your father will be very angry when he finds out. You're grounded for a week. To be grounded means that you can't leave the house to do anything fun. You can go to school, but when you're done with school, you have to come home right away, immediately, and not go anywhere else. And that, again, is a common punishment that parents will give their children. To ground means that to tell the child that they can't leave the house. And Sophie, of course, is not very happy. She says, "That's not fair." Sophie says none of her friends' parents are as strict as her mother is. To be strict means that you have lots of rules and that you expect your children to obey or to follow all of these rules. If you have lots of rules and you tell your children they have to follow all of them, you may be called strict. Mom says that's enough. She doesn't want to hear Sophie talking anymore. That's enough. I won't have you talking back to me. I won't have you means I'm not going to allow you or permit you or let you talk back to me. To talk back means that someone is usually a child is arguing with the parents and saying things that are not respectful of the parents, and that is to talk back. Finally, Mom says, "Go to your room." Again, this is a very traditional punishment for children if they do something wrong. We tell them to go to their room, meaning to go to their bedroom and don't leave. They can't watch television or other things. Well, that's the end of today's podcast. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next podcast.